the phenomenon of esports and gaming in educational senses and in the educational sphere and using as a method for teaching is something that I'm diving deep into with Thomas, who's a longtime educator and now works in esports and specifically on the EU-funded EASIE project, which if you want to find more about it, I'll leave a link in the description for the Discord group for it, and just enjoy the rest of the video. Thank you. Yeah, so you can say that game-based learning is easier in esports because you already work with games. But so the thing is, do you want this to be trickled down to other courses? So let's say math. Suddenly you have more game-based learning in math because of the esports course and the effect you have from there.
We don't need to fit the square in every single round hole and so on, you know?
Yeah.
So if there's no proper connection, if there's no real, if there's nothing obvious that can bring both parts together, then I'd say we don't need to force it.
And we're live back with The Road. Today my guest is Thomas, also known as Lenguan or Kunsegia on Twitter. And he's esports education extraordinaire, if you could say it like that. An advocate for gaming and the positives that gaming can do for people in general. So Thomas, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so the first burning question that I have right now is you are an educated teacher, and you come from a classical background of teaching in many years. And like, why transition to esports? Why is it that esports is so interesting for you that you want to delve into this industry?
Well, it has been quite a long journey to get there, you know. Actually, yes, I am an educated teacher, and I worked in regular education for like 10 to 12 years. And when I started teaching in schools, I actually found out that if you are into gaming, if you are able to be legit, so to say, then you sort of open up a field of conversation. You find an easy way to connect to people and to have a conversation beyond teaching and beyond the whole schooling stuff. And as I always had a background in gaming, like I have been a gamer since I was a kid, you know, like probably most of us, but for me, that's really, really long ago. And then I actually found out that the passion that I have in my free time is something that could be of good use within my professional setting. So I sort of started out establishing that kind of conversation. I was always sort of the specialist for the challenging kids. And if you wanted to sort of reach out to them, then gaming was definitely the topic to go. And when I realized that, I sort of stumbled over the whole topic of game-based learning, like why are games useful beyond just entertainment? And then I started sort of trying out myself, you know, doing escape rooms for education, understanding the use of games, like, if you put it sort of pretty straightforward, like Minecraft, or also other games that could be really useful for educational purposes. And then I somehow stumbled over the topic of esports as well. I'm not really an esports person, you know. I wasn't on a LAN in '98 and brought my PC to the parties and so on. But I am pretty much into gaming. I know quite a lot, I think. And esports, or esports education in general, is really interesting in quite a number of aspects. Like for classical education, to sort of reform it and add some value to it, to the fact that the thing that we actually talked about right before the interview started, and that's politics. You know, if you want to participate in esports and try to sort of get away from the whole sports washing aspects and so on, being educated would be actually a great idea. And yeah, that's how it came to be. I found out that it's interesting. I tried it out. And then this whole thing sort of became a business, being a facilitator, working in projects, creating our own services and products and so on.
Interesting. Okay, so one thing that I took note of there was something I wanted to ask you about. So when you when you were a classical teacher and taught at a school, could you feel like the level of your, let's say, the level of your like just teacher student bond, did it like go like any levels deeper when you had them like become like, if you knew they were gamers and you were gaming as well, like did your connection become deeper, and did you maybe get to know the students a bit on a deeper level?
That's not that easy to answer. I'd say yes-ish. Every single good answer is yes-ish. It gives you another road to follow. You know, it is not. You cannot say in general that it works all the time. First and foremost, people have to be gamers, and
Yeah, but also just in your experience, in your case,
yeah. If they open up anyways, you know, I don't need to go down that gaming route. I think that if you want to be a good teacher, then building relationships is probably the most important thing. You can do that well without the use of gaming as a topic. But if you have challenging students that are maybe a bit introvert and do not open up that easily, then gaming might be a good topic to start with, to sort of find something to talk about beyond regular schooling and beyond behavior and grades and tasks to do and so on. So I think it is a viable way to go, but it's not that you can say it solves all the problems, not even with the gamers, because it is something that is pretty challenging to be well informed, to have the right opportunities, the right opinions, and also to create opportunity to work with the people, because the work that you do in school mostly is not within gaming. No, you can talk about it. It's a good topic to start the day or to have a chat in break time, but it's probably still not yet is the way to go when it comes to creating sustainable education within the context of institutional education.
Yeah. Okay. So when it comes to my personal education, I've been a big proponent, and I've been been exposed to a lot of like group work throughout my entire studies, both through high school, gymnasium, and then throughout university as well. And something that I can imagine worked well, and something that I've had a lot of success with when I've been teaching students, and it's about the esports interested, and the ones that that really try to better themselves at a game. There are so many external factors that makes them like that has to play in before they can get up to the next level. And what I've personally tried a lot is to find things and aspects within the teaching or within being taught that you can apply these different aspects to group work in your groups. Let's say you do a project, and then within this project you have maybe 4 or 5 people you have to work together. Well, some of the tools that you learn from teaching or from being educated and from being taught from school is something that you can take directly into the group work and project work at school, but also take it straight home to your team and then apply the fundamentals there as well. Is there a correlation between like how have you noticed anything in this area where you can like really feel like the gaming aspect and the esports interest that has shown more interest in classes that you've taught, basically because of these circumstances where they can apply it in different areas?
I think it works actually both ways. You can use or you can benefit from an esports attitude with people who are into esports, who are actually playing in a team or strive to become an esports athlete at some time. And you can also use it the other way around. You can also, as you said, bring something from the educational background into esports and make them find some added value with that. I think that it is probably at the moment you'd say that it mostly works in that direction that I mentioned first, that you can actually benefit in education from that esports mindset, because it is not easy within a traditional educational setting to sort of authentically transport the idea of being an athlete, whatever that means, do your training, have healthy eating habits, get enough sleep, being on time, do not let your team members down, stuff like that, that is something that is actually, it is something that is demanded from an esports athlete. Of course, there are different examples, I know, but in general, if you sort of come up with an idea of what the perfect, or what the right attitude is for an esports athlete, and you can actually also substitute that with sports in general, it's not that different. The only thing different about esports is that it happens within that digital context. But you can benefit a lot as an educational institution if you bring that mindset of esports athletes into a learning setting. I'd say that's probably the most interesting aspect for me at the moment.
Yeah, have you encountered some of this when you've been teaching students? Like, have you seen them be enthusiastic? Like, it might be before the time of you being in esports at all, but is there some aspects where you felt like you've had the pleasure of having a positive experience like this?
Yeah, well, if you take your work seriously, you experience that quite a lot, and I guess that probably in every single class there are some students who bring that attitude without being esports or without even being interested. So you find that again and again. But if you would like to approach people that do not really have it at the moment, but have the potential to do so, then esports might be the right topic to open it up. Because there's if you have a look at young people, actually, you can almost say that every single kid is a gamer somehow. Games are very widespread. It's the one medium that you can reach out to most of the young people with, and I'd say that you experience that in a traditional educational setting, especially if you can work in a different form. If you have a project orientation, if you have a good reason to invest energy, if you have a purpose. That's we are actually talking motivational theory here. If you feel related, if you achieve or strive for mastery, then people will be motivated for sure. And the topic is interchangeable. Then can be everything.
Yeah, also another key role for the teacher is something like being a mentor for the students and being a good role model. And something that's synonymous with that is conflict handling and trying to deal with conflicts that happens in the classroom. But something that's so interesting throughout my experience, at least, as both as a gamer and esports athlete in Counter-Strike, and also during my many years of studying, I've seen so many aspects that are one-to-one from the classroom to the teams that you get onto, and I can imagine the same with companies, where you have to have these conflict resolutions and trying to find the best way out of these conflicts, where even though the teacher might give you some theories or try and help you get through these potential conflicts, it's basically only you and your teammates in the end that has to work through it. And is there something that is there a point where you feel like the responsibilities of teaching conflict resolution is something that's a key aspect throughout teaching as well?
Yeah, well, it should be, but when it comes to education, you could say that no matter what the topic is beyond the curricular topics, there's no time for it. Teaching means that you have to work with sort of a lack of a lot of things, and first and foremost, probably time, because you have a very strict schedule, timetable. You have a very strict curriculum. You have to achieve this and that and that, and you have to deal with topic X, Y, and Z to prepare for the exams, and that sort of limits the time and also the effort that goes into all of that in between stuff. That is actually the most important, like building relationships, building trust, having the possibility to show that you are reliable, stuff like that. When it comes to regular schooling, it is mostly about do your stuff, be quiet, reach the goal in the end, and please don't make too much noise. And that's probably due to the system, I'd say. If I have a look at former colleagues, at teachers, there are so many great teachers, but the teachers as well as the students, they are mostly struggling with a system that is sort of built on deficits. No matter if it's money or if it's staff, if it's education for the staff, if it's the whole question of using digital tools, even if there are quite a lot of schools and educational institutions that are quite well equipped at the moment, have a look at the education of the teachers. Are they actually prepared for using all of that? Like not only, I don't know, selling your soul to Microsoft or Apple, but also being proficient with the tools. I don't care if you work with Office or if you work with Pages or whatever they are called. I care a lot about, do we have time to sort of sort out all the other stuff around it? And do we also have the proficiency to get something from it? Not just being busy, but taking away something. We need to go for application beyond schooling. And that's something that schools or education in general still struggles a lot with. But
yeah, sorry. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Go.
But that's mostly not the teacher's fault. It's not even. It might not even be the fault of the head teacher or of the school district. But it's system. It's systemic. It's inherent to the system, I'd say.
Yeah, something that's so vital for a teacher as well is like you have the, like, I wouldn't say opportunity because it sounds a bit predatory in some sense, but you have influence over these young adults, these children, no matter like what age range you teach in, right? So you have the responsibility to teach core values and try and mold these people, because you sit with them, with the same group of people 8 hours every day, maybe more, maybe less, but you are with them a lot, and they spend a lot of time with you as well as a person. So like this aspect of them maybe not having the, let's say, resources to try and teach these core values and how to fit into the society that they're gonna go out and enter after school. Well, how, like, what do you think do you think that's a subject that teachers resonate with? Because it might be a bit under the surface, because like they might just be focusing on the subjects and on the different math and like the different subjects that they are specialized in, and don't really think about the extracurricular stuff that's actually also implicitly influenced.
Yeah, well, extracurricular stuff, it's not actually extracurricular. You can find it in every single curriculum that you are actually asked to participate in helping young people to mature and to become sort of critical participants within society, critical consumers, and so on and so on and so on. This is actually, as far as I know, it is written down in the curriculum. It is there, but it is not on a day-to-day basis. It is something that has some sort of an overarching value. And when you have a look at the details, at the nitty-gritty stuff, then there's actually not much time for it. And then when it comes to teaching the right or proper values, what are these?
Yeah, exactly.
That's actually pretty difficult. And for me, it is quite important to be authentic as a person when you teach, when you work with people, and so on. But at the same time, if I don't agree with the official line of consensus, then what should I do? Should I sort of say what they want me to say? Should I be sort of authentic but critical? It's sort of a battlefield, and at the same time, it's quite an easy way to go to say, okay, I have opinions, but I don't bring them here because we don't have time, we don't have the room for discussing it. For me, when I was a young adult, it was the most important thing and the most fun thing to sort of discuss things in class as a student. But at the same time, having been a teacher for that long, I know that even though these are valuable moments, there's some other stuff you have to take care of, quite a lot.
Yeah, something that's I wanna just real quick mention Jordan Peterson, and right before he blew up, he had a lot of videos about his semesters and how he taught, and basically an entire class was just posted on YouTube. Now, after he blew up, people retroactively went into his YouTube channel to try and learn throughout all of these things, and he became very synonymous with the both like the philosophy, but also like the psychology behind different, just regular psychology teachings. But what made him unique was he used Disney as a pop culture example to try and generate these points to become like really get the people or get the students more invested into the different subjects throughout, like, and that's through discussing things in plenum, as you say. But like, do you think esports maybe have the same capabilities and maybe possibilities of that being, well, maybe you have a class full of esports enthusiasts who study mechanical engineering. Well, can you suddenly use esports as an aspect, as a conversation starter, as an entry point to try and generate interesting dialogue for these students to make it become a meta example?
Yeah, well, I think esports really strives to become a battlefield at the moment. It has always been quite a complex thing to grasp, but at the moment, esports suffers the same problems as, for example, professional sports does, or as a lot of aspects of capitalism actually do. We are in a time in which we are very profit oriented, to put it that way, and this is the goal that too many people strive for, in my opinion. No matter if it's in esports, no matter if it's in sports, or if it's in the economy in general, So values are not very how do I put that? They are not that sexy at the moment, There's a German saying by the famous author Bertolt Brecht, and that means erst kommt das Fressen, dann kommt die Moral. So first it's eating, swallow as much as you can, and then afterwards it's the morals. And we live in a time with that kind of spirit in a lot of different areas, and that's not only in esports, but I think esports can be a valid example. And even though I'm not that much of an esports person, but even I have the feeling that I want my esports back. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not interested in ESL Faceit Group to be owned by the Saudis and all of the events are going to happen in Riyadh. I don't want to have that, but I don't even want to have the football World Cup in, I don't know, Riyadh or wherever it is going to happen next, just because there's the money. That's not the way I want to see the world develop. Maybe I'm old-fashioned. I don't know, but for me, that's not what I would like to see as a development. And esports,
that might be just the biggest fault of capitalism.
Yeah, but what can we do about capitalism? If we go down that road, then we are actually talking like really systemic problems, because we don't have another good solution. Where do we want to go? And I guess it's one of the inherent problems with capital that it's all about money. But what can you do about it at the moment? I don't have a better solution. So what I can offer is being a sparring partner to sort of talk about stuff, and adding my two cents to the story and my understanding of the right values. I don't want to convince anybody about this is right and this is wrong, but we can probably say that the connection of totalitarianism, big money, and organized entertainment is probably not going to lead to the results that we as enthusiasts would like to see in the end. That's probably something we can all agree on. But besides that, yeah, to come back to your original question about the whole Disney metaphor, I think esports can be a valid metaphor. I think it doesn't have the same impact as Disney does. For sure, this is going to stay for a while, but because if we sort of try to understand the number of people that have an emotional connection and knowledge about the Disney franchise and all of its movies and characters and so on, then the number is going to be way higher. I'd say that if we have a look at gaming in general, then we are sort of talking similar numbers. Esports is one of the playing fields for that whole thing, and it adds some specific values to it because it's competition, it is doing sports. But besides that, I think gaming and esports are absolutely valid metaphors and also pretty nice showcases to illustrate the problems we are facing right now and in the near future.
Yeah, but the biggest problem for me when it comes to when you say both gaming and esport, because gaming is a sort of, in general, it's an escapism for the hardships. That's how it's traditionally been used. That's how it's still being used often, where it's not the same set of values that's being presented when you talk esports specifically, because there's the competitive sports angle of it. So, like, how do you think, like, the gaming values, like, how do you see them? Because I don't see the gaming values as being as valuable as the esports values, because esports values is all about bettering yourself, becoming the best you can be at a discipline and honing your craft. And you see 16, 15-year-old people holding a calendar with 4 strangers online, practicing 5 times a week and playing matches and tournaments and playing qualifiers. And that wouldn't be possible with just regular gaming values. So, like, how is it that you see the, let's say, gaming values that can affect these kinds of, like, how they can affect the youth in that sense?
That is a very difficult and complex question.
Yeah,
I will try to sort of pick it apart one by one. So when you say that the values that are sort of demonstrated in esports are more valuable or more
that might be my subjective.
relevant, more relevant than values that we can see within gaming, whatever that actually means, then you are actually you are presenting a very capitalistic utilitarianism point of view, because it's about bettering people. And why should we better people? To be better participants in society, to be better off, to be better paid, to make the economy thrive even more, to fill Elon Musk's wallet? I don't really know. I think understanding the added value that competition, and I'm talking sports competition, in brackets esports included, can be really good in a number of different topics, especially when it comes to sort of helping young people to find a good orientation, helping young people to find proper role models, maybe, I don't know, career paths to go down. What esports adds to that when it comes to the comparison to sports, for example, is that heavy focus on digital culture, on digital tools, and so on, which also brings some value, especially for education, for example. But at the same time, I'm not that happy about that people have to work harder. This sounds a lot like startup mentality. You all have to be 120% proficient. Get up in the morning at 4:30, go for, I don't know, jogging for 30 minutes, then have your, I don't know what you're going to eat, some kind of power food. That's a storyline that's way too late capitalism for me, At the same time, young people need orientation. young people need to understand what it means to be an active and valuable participant in society. We also have responsibilities, there are laws and so on. So it is, esports can be a good vehicle to sort of create a framework that helps you understand limits, limitations, boundaries, rules, maybe even things that are forbidden, you know, like prohibited, like don't show that behavior, don't be toxic in online gaming, stuff like that. And that can be a really, really valuable framework. And that's why I'm a big fan of sort of bringing that into the light, bringing it into education. For me, for example, it is, I just had a meeting before with a friend of mine, and we were actually talking about the needs of companies, you know, and a lot of companies are struggling to find competent young people who are willing to invest in a career with a specific company, and esports could be the right lever, the right framework to sort of address these people, because they are out there. Young people are amazing. It's not like youth is getting dumber and dumber and less interested. Of course, there's a lot of problems within gaming, within digital media, within social media, within esports as well. Not only when it comes to sports washing, but the whole question of harassment, for example. That's something that we are all confronted with. You know, try and use a female gamer tag for a week. Guess what you experience? You know, there are going to be a lot of disturbing messages in your inbox, and I don't want to go into the specifics, but I guess you can imagine. So there's a lot of benefit it could bring. For me, the most important benefit is that, as this is the main popular culture, and again, I'm talking gaming, I'm not talking esports, but esports is also sort of relevant in there. It's the mainstream popular culture with young people. Like, we're talking 80+% of young people are into gaming. So why not use this culture, this playing field, as an authentic starting point to sort of bring up these discussions, bring up these big questions, bring up these cases of misbehavior, these cases of I don't know, toxicity, whatever, you know. When it comes to the values in gaming, that's something that you cannot really describe, in my opinion, because when we are talking about gamers, whatever that means, it's a very general term that actually doesn't cover anything specific, but everything sort of bit. Gaming is a good tool and is used quite a lot for escapism, as you mentioned, but gaming can be everything. There are so many people who use their interest in gaming to start a career, for example. Probably most of the people who would like to become a developer have that idea just because they were gamers. We worked with a few companies beforehand that were very dev focused. There was one company, they had, I don't know, about 400 people, and more than 2/3 of them wanted to become a developer just because of specific gaming experience, you know. Then there's the whole, I could go back 10 years, you know, the whole Gamergate thing. Don't bring politics into my games. The whole indie versus AAA. The whole, there's so much. There are quite a large number of Nazi groups on Steam. There is sort of child's work / almost slavery within Roblox, like a kids gaming platform, all of that. So if you talk about values in gaming, we are actually talking about general values in society. We are talking about values when it comes to consumption. We are talking about values when it comes to participating in production in some kind of way. We are actually also talking about growing together. You know, when it comes to a career choice, you can actually see that most people who are interested in a specific job have that interest just because of a role model. Could be your bigger brother, could be your dad, so on and so on and so on. And if it happens within that context, if your bigger brother had the Super NES and played, I don't know, Super Mario all day long or whatever, Mario Kart, whatever game, and you were sitting next to him and were fascinated, then there might be a good chance that you are choosing a career path that sort of orients in that direction, And it's not possible to talk about values in gaming in general. Gaming is just, I don't know, an image of society. It's a mirror image, every good and every bad you can find in society, you can also find in gaming.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to ask you about it, because it is that vague, and where the esports values are more clear cut because it is sports, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And one more thing, if we're talking about casual gamers, which are quite a large number, the term gamer is problematic in itself anyways, because if you talk about people reading books, you can also call them reader, but it doesn't say anything. It's just the act of reading. But there are so many cultures in there, reading a comic doesn't have to do anything with, I don't know, reading historical manuscripts, but both of them are readers. And it's the same with gaming as well. And if we're talking casual gaming, like you do it in your pastime, you do it sort of as a bit of escapism, you do it just because your friends play at the weekend, you do it just because you are on the metro and you have 10 minutes left, and then you do your small puzzle thingy. You probably cannot do a lot when it comes to moral development, when it comes to sort of changing society, maybe with this group of consumers. I wouldn't even call them gamers, because it's the same if you have a look at writing, at journalism, if you have a look at movies. Of course, you have that core group that you can work with that are also convinced and willing to do something. But at the same time, there's probably most of the people you are addressing are just consuming your product and are probably not even willing to consume it fully, but will jump to the next thing and the next thing and so on. So difficult to talk about gaming in general.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. But that's also why it's so interesting, because well, gaming, as I understand it from your point of view, and you must correct me if I'm wrong, but the way that I understand you talking about it is like the medium of gaming is something you can use to correlate with all these youths, and that's where you can have this game-based learning and gamification aspects coming in and then generate more interest from the students in some sense.
Yes-ish. I agree with the first part. As I said before, it is mainstream culture.
Yeah.
And that's why it's relevant to quite a lot of people. And doesn't it sound like a good idea that you sort of approach your target group within one of their favorite topics?
Yeah, exactly.
Like I'm not talking kids. I'm actually talking, I don't know, this is sort of marketing, to be honest. It's also something that education should look for, or I don't know, politics or whatever. But why not address the target group within their favorite topic? Would make perfect sense. And then, I don't know, when we talk about game-based learning, I'm actually not talking that much about games culture.
No. It's the aspects of games in teaching. Yeah.
The whole topic of discussion, like let's talk about games culture. Let's talk about game development circumstances and so on. All relevant and important. But when it comes to the use of games for learning, then we are actually talking about a paradigm shift in education. We are
Also
actually talking about learning in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Learning.
Exactly.
Personal, professional development. Because the best learning tools we know are games. I think it was, I'm probably quoting wrong now, and that's embarrassing, but I think it was Sid Meier who once said, a game is just a set of interesting problems. And that applies to every single game. It might not be the same with narrative games or, I don't know, outliers, but when you have a look at the core loop, at the core gameplay loop, a gameplay loop presents a task, a problem that you have to solve, and then the game elaborates on it. And there's a whole lot of literature about why games are the perfect learning machines and why games are the perfect tools for educational institutions, actually. But at the same time, games have had, at least in Central Europe, but I guess probably worldwide, and it was the go-to scapegoat for, I don't know, a generation almost. Games had so much bad press that you cannot talk about games within society. Well, that might be a bit big, but within education, especially when it comes to the place where I'm from, in Austria and in Germany, this is still mostly true. And I see that in other countries as well. It is something that is loaded with prejudice, with uninformed opinions, and so on and so on, and that's the major problem. Because if we are talking about I don't know, reforming the educational system, then we are actually talking about finding learning machines or learning tools that help automate a learning process. Also, I don't know, fill it with fun, with motivation, and fun can also be hard fun, serious fun. It doesn't need to be laughter all the time. A game like Factorio, for example, that's not what you would call fun when it comes to the comparison of a Disney movie, but at the same time, hundreds of thousands of people play it because it's fun. It's fun building up and manipulating systems. And if you see that approach in its purest form, would actually be the perfect tool for learning. At the same time, it would also sort of open up space and time for educators to work on the important stuff, to work on the relation building, to be not, there's this famous saying when it comes to the shift in education, you don't need to, or you no longer should be the sage on the stage, like the person that knows things, that explains them to you, and then you just have to do the trick, and if you do it properly, then you will pass. That's old education. Modern education should rather focus on the teacher being the guide to the side, a mentor, a person that is sort of living or is a role model, shows how it could be done, and at the same time is someone that guides you along the way of personal development.
So in a sense, a facilitator, actually, in some sense.
Yeah, even more,
Yeah.
A facilitator, most of the time facilitators, if you have a look at the proper meaning of the word, that you are sort of a catalyst.
Yeah.
You just help people do it. Then I'd say yes, but still facilitating at the same time when it comes to practice is still quite a lot of being the sage on the stage, explaining things,
Yeah.
And if you have a look at a game, I'm a lot into this whole escape rooms for education because we also develop them. The best thing about the escape room is that you don't need a person to explain it to you, because there's everything there and you make sense of it. And you as a team deal with the problem. You evaluate what you have in front of you, and then you go through the different steps and you find a solution. Or if you don't, then you might ask for a hint. And when you compare that to regular education, like traditional education mostly means that there's this person at the desk, at the blackboard, explaining to you, writing something down, telling you to open the book on page 48, and then you are explained how it works. Maybe you are shown once or twice, and then it's up to you to sort of do the trick. Like the main difference, and that's taken from game-based learning literature, the main difference when it comes to this specific aspect between learning with games and learning within educational institutions is that within a game, performance comes before competence. You know, you develop competence through performing. When you have a look at traditional schooling, you are presented the competence, the knowledge, and your performance is just, you know, there's no own learning within that. You are just asked to mimic, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
And if
you
you
asked to mirror basically everything.
Yeah. And if you mimic, there's no need for understanding or no need for actual skill development. You know? And that's the power of games. And I'm not talking learning games or serious games. They are pretty problematic most of the time, just because of the terminology. And I'm also not talking gamification, which is a very problematic term as well, in my opinion. I'm talking the use of commercial games. I'm talking about using a city builder like City Skylines 2 that just came out to understand the infrastructure of cities. You know, what are the challenges that a city is facing? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that is what games should be used for, but they are not.
No, but
unless you are Microsoft and offer Minecraft education, and this might happen.
Yeah, of course. Something that's quite fascinating, because I can imagine that the old way of teaching is something that you experienced, because I experienced it myself in my primary school days and years. And what is it like specifically that you believe that that this new, you can say like performance focused in some sense, but guiding teaching style, like what is it you think that can bring, that has, like, you're such a big advocate for it, as is how I understand it, at least for how you explained it just before. Like what is it about this performance based learning that you feel is more tempting, exciting, interesting than the old school whiteboard and mimicking? Like, yeah, it's very basic pronunciation, very basically explained. Yeah, but you know,
depends on who we are talking about. When we are talking about students, I think it's obvious, because it's doing it yourself. You know, when you I mentioned that before, but if you have a look at how motivation works, you know,
yeah,
then it's pretty much that you need to be autonomous to be able to be intrinsically motivated. You need to build a relationship, you need to be invested in something, and then there's also a purpose. And if you can have all of that, then people are going to be motivated. I'm not saying that every single game will motivate every single student. We have quite a lot of genres, and not everyone is a big fan of Factorio or Counter-Strike or whatever, you know?
Yeah.
But my slogan always is, there is a game for everyone. And what I want to say is, there is a game for you that is able to create intrinsic motivation. And if there is that game, then this is probably the way you should head towards, you know? That's the road to go down. And if you can find out about that and make that sort of at least part of your profession, then you are probably going to be motivated quite a lot when it comes to the world of work, when it comes to earning the money, you know? And that's what it's all about. We shouldn't consider subjects, and we shouldn't consider, I don't know, timetables in education. It should be much more, and this is completely dependent of gaming, but it should be much more interest focused when it comes to education.
Yeah, so you don't have this wide palette of, let's say, 8 different subjects, and then you have to learn this curriculum for. Then you need to learn the curriculum for every single one, and then like that's what you basically go through when it's like high school. You pick a line. That's how it is in Denmark, at least in the gymnasium. You pick like a line that's has these subjects on. There's like A, B, and C level. The A level is the hardest one. That means you have it for 3 years. And some educations are doing both esports and like game development as well. But also like this is where you can focus your interest. and then you can specify it even further when you're going on university, for example, because that's the only subject that you're taught in, because that's where your interest lies. But that generalization of it, like in Denmark at least, it only really happens in the primary school up until like 9th, 10th grade, when you're like 14, 15. And then more or less the road of interest is the way to go in, or the opportunity is there at least for most people. But like, so is that maybe because Denmark is far ahead, or is it more like at Germany or the others lagging behind, or how is it you think that this could be a sense?
I think that not only in Denmark, there's quite some possibilities to sort of specialize, and I don't want to be the advocate against a general education. I think there is value to that. It's valuable to be able to form a proper sentence. It is valuable to be able to write something, to understand the rules of writing, to understand, I don't know, maybe the basic rules of design, whatever. And there's actually even more that we should teach that we are teaching at the moment. For example, when it comes to financial literacy, I think there's a big need for that. And I'm not talking doing business. I'm talking making sure that you are not broke, understanding which insurance is important and what is just someone who wants to sell you something. I think that is quite important. So I'm not against general education, but what we do, and I see that in Denmark as well, at least partly, is that we say, okay, everyone has to do that. No matter what you bring to the table, you could be, if you were at the age of 14 and you were an established journalist already, you would still probably be asked to do a Danish writing class, even though you know about it, because that's the whole problem is standardization. The whole problem is that we say every single animal has to do the same trick, no matter if you swim or fly or whatever, and that's one of the major challenges. And if you can sort of find that one topic, that one path that people are really motivated with, you can actually do quite a lot of other stuff with them if they see the necessity and if they see the connection to what they love doing, So it's not that easy to answer, like everything. It's it's a bit of that and a bit of that. But for me, what is really important is to sort of understand what is happening within mainstream culture nowadays and understand that we could actually reap quite a lot of benefits from this development.
Yeah.
I liked to say that school is not preparing kids for the future, but we don't need to worry because kids are doing that on their own by gaming, which is, of course, oversimplified, and it's not really true in quite a lot of cases, but at the same time, it holds some value, because that's actually what you are talking about when you're talking about esports, about 14-year-olds doing project management, having a year-long calendar, and so on and so on. When we are talking about 15-year-olds that are changing their eating habits to be more in shape, to be better prepared for the next tournament.
Yeah.
When we're talking about that, of course, that holds quite a lot of value. Of course it does.
Well, also just the fact that they become fluent in English, both grammatically and speaking wise, just through gaming.
Yes.
And that happens both through casual gaming and through esports. So there's an entire subject in school that could more or less be not abolished, but at least get toned down a bit, because so many people are becoming so good at it at such a young age, because it is the international language in gaming. So
Ish, and I think it is Ish. Please, there's so much about English culture and English history and so on that you should not leave out, of course.
No, but I'm talking about like the specific language part of it.
For me, actually, this is probably the most obvious development you can see within education when it comes to the effects of gaming. That you actually, teachers, I don't know if it's the same in Denmark, but teachers and also society tends to say, young people nowadays, and so on and so on. You know that, And they are getting worse and worse, and there's so many reasons. They have no more values. They don't know how to work, and blah blah blah. But if you have a look at something that is objectively, like we are not talking about my impression or yours. You can see that throughout society. When it comes to countries, for example, especially like Germany and Austria, for example, who have a very strong culture within their own language. I think that's even more than in Denmark, because in Denmark, for example, if you watched movies, there was mostly no Danish translation. So you learn better English through movies anyways. And it's the same with gaming. But when it comes to Germany, most of the movies, or all of the movies, all of the TV series, all of the books, and also most of the games were actually translated to German. So there was no real, you could not really see a result when it comes to the fact that someone is just watching a movie and then getting better at English. But with gaming, especially with online gaming, the discourse, to put it like pretty in pretty general terms, the discourse is very heavily influenced through English. Now, even everyday language or youth slang is heavily influenced by English. You can in Germany they have a thing that is called Wort des Jahres, Word of the Year, and there's also a thing called Youth Word of the Year, Jugendwort des Jahres, and this always has been something that was pretty far out. It's all of that, from cringe to sus and so on.
Yeah, we have it in Denmark as well. So,
and if you have a look at these words, like 20 years ago, of course, there were quite a lot of English or influenced by English words already. But the number of entrances in that list that are actually taken from English or are English words adapted has risen exponentially. You can actually, there's if you have a look at 5 youth words, then there are probably 4 from English nowadays. And you can see that definitely.
Yeah, also, just a side point, the Danish translation of movies and games were always super shit. So I mean, that's why I think most of it were like you rather wanted to see it in English, in Denmark at least. But something that's super interesting is because Germany has one of the biggest film studios and film institutes in the entire world when it comes to movie production and series production. And the fact that so that means you're skilled in translating English content, but you're also skilled in creating your own content when it comes to German, like Die Welle or Der Leben der Anderen, or you name it. There's so many incredible movies and pieces of cinema from there. So the fact that you already have this amount of talent in the industry, and still the English language like bursts through and becomes an influential part of it, is it really says a lot, because you haven't really seen this trend like land in France yet, for example, but it's something that's so influential. Yeah, okay. Maybe you know a bit more than me, but at least for what I know.
I'm not that sure. I think that the French are a special case, and I don't mean that in a negative way. I really like the French and French culture and so on. But when it comes to French as a language, the French language sort of tried to protect itself way more than other languages. But at the same time, you still had words that came from other languages. And if you're talking about the weekend in French, it's le weekend. That's just the regular word. But if you have a look at young people, for example, I follow the Rocket League discourse quite a lot. Then and have a look at the French players there. That it's a wild mix of English and French as well. You have that, and that's probably due to gaming. And I don't know about every single country, but gaming is a global phenomenon, and English is the language of gaming mostly, and therefore English as an everyday second language, even for kids, becomes more and more established.
Yeah. Okay.
At least in the first world.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So I just wanted to take the conversation a bit back because I was thinking about something. So when it comes to the progression or the performance-based learning that we talked about earlier, I was thinking about the relation between student and teacher, because the classical example of when I had like my youth education and when you got your educations with the chalkboard and the mimicking. That was a very clear defined rules between what a student and a teacher, what the relationship was there. I was thinking, could you compare the more performance-based ones with maybe that of a coach and a player? Because the coach is a lot more invested in the player's development and trying to help the player figure out for himself the solutions rather than giving the solutions and then have a different set of problems that you can use the same solutions on.
I'd say as a concept, yes.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, also as a concept,
It is if the role of a coach or, I don't know, a mentor, like a facilitator, the words that we used before, which also sounds pretty much like HR work and professional development.
I know.
But that's actually really, really good, because this is also an area that is really affected by it, because if you, we could also talk about the generation Minecraft and how this is going to change the world of work. The labor market is going to be profoundly changed just by the fact that every single kid is playing this goddamn Minecraft game. And I'd say that this rigid division between the sage on the stage and the guy to the side is something that helps understanding the idea, but at the same time you need to be very careful about that, because we all had good teachers, and you might have had one good teacher that was more that kind of a coach. There are, and it doesn't need to be in, I don't know, sports, physical education or whatever. I had a teacher in history and in German that was he was a real mentor and a coach, and he was so tough with us if we were not reliable, but at the same time he was a total role model for me.
Yeah.
And you might also have that, I don't know, you might also have a personality that is more like sage on the stage. I don't know, I'm also pretty talkative, and I think I'm a smart ass, and I think I know quite a lot. So sometimes I tend to talk too much and be more like the guy explaining it, but this doesn't need to be that problematic. If you are willing to mix it up, if you understand the different roles and the different settings, then it's all fine, in my opinion.
But it's also just a discussion of the the different methods of teaching and how the different methods can affect this student-teacher relationship. That's like the core of the question in some sense. When
we are talking about the concept of a coach, what comes to my mind is either the American university coach type, or the coach that is working with professionals, and both are relevant.
I was thinking more of the when you go to football and you're 14 years old and you go to
exactly
that kind of coach.
If you have a look at that, then they are probably, it's not all about performance. Of course it needs to be, but at the same time, sometimes you are just a buddy. Sometimes you are just willing to still accept this kid to training, even though he missed out the last 3. That is in conflict with the understanding of a performance-oriented coach.
Yeah.
So for me, actually, mentor, like a person mentoring, like a bigger brother, a buddy, so to say, is probably even the better terminology, or probably even the better understanding.
Okay.
If you have kids that are willing to perform at a high level, then the whole idea of being a coach and working with that performance attitude is totally fine. But we are not all athletes. And probably most of the kids are not going to be athletes. And they need to have the right people in front of them, working with them, being the guide for them as well.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is a good segue to talk about your Erasmus project.
Yes.
EASIE Erasmus Esports project. It's an EU-funded project. It's lasting 4 years. Can you maybe talk a bit about what your goal is for that, and then maybe how some of the talking points we've had so far, like how you see them, or hopefully have tried to implement them throughout this project?
Okay, sure. Okay. as an introduction, of course, I need to mention all the amazing partners that we have. So we're talking about an EU-funded project, as you said, and it is part of a project called probably say it wrong, forward-looking projects, I think they are called. So we are talking about projects that are innovative, that are sort of trying to establish standards, like lighthouse projects that create that create an idea where you could go to in the future, so to say. And we are talking about a 4-year project within that call. So it's actually quite big, and we have partners in several countries. In Denmark, for example, there's VUC Storström and VUC Copenhagen Sud and Remisen Nestvet. And in Italy, we work with Archivio della Memoria. In Spain, we work with Cesur. Here in Austria, it is me, like the Games Institute, or rather the association that I also have, Spielmacher. And we have an Irish partner, Universal Learning Systems. That is a collaboration. We have done several other projects before, so we know our partners. We know that this is a good group to do such a project with. We have done another games-based project before called Games in Basic Skills Teaching that happened until 2018, I think. Was a 3-year project, and this was about bringing games to basic education. Like, how can games enrich educational settings? And the EASIE project, EASIE stands for Esports as an Accelerator for Social Inclusive Education. And the idea behind the project is that we would actually like to find out what is needed for educational institutions to be prepared to start an esports program at your institution. So we bring together educational institutions that already do esports and others that are interested or are willing to do so, and specialists within the field, like educators, esports professionals, national associations, you name it, to create a platform, to bring them together, to be in exchange, and at the same time create some blueprints, so to say, like what does it mean to create an esports education event organized by students online. And we will document that, and we will try to describe that process, what is needed, like develop tools that make sense within that context, what is needed for the managers of educational institutions to prepare their school. Not only talking about computers and internet connection, but also training for the teachers. Like, how do you communicate with stakeholders? Are there national associations that you could approach? And so on and so on and so on. So we are actually trying to create a blueprint for educational institutions, what they need to be esports ready, and understand the whole process as a community effort. That's the idea.
So can you, it might be a bit of a wild comparison, but can you maybe compare it to when the crypto boom happened a couple of years ago and the legislatives were so far behind that they had to be caught up, so they knew what to regulate on before, like, so it didn't go completely haywire and go Wild West in some sense?
They haven't caught up yet, right?
Yeah, exactly. They haven't caught up yet. So they're still ongoing in that process. But can you compare it a bit to that? Because you have a lot of legislative people in that sense, in that area at least, where they don't have knowledge about these things. Like, can you compare that maybe to the principals that, or the stakeholders that needs to try and evaluate and see the values that this kind of program can help do?
Yeah, you could draw a comparison for sure, because there's a lack of information, there's a lack of understanding, first and foremost, and the situation was pretty much the same when it came to the whole crypto topic. But we are not trying to sort of educate legislators. That's not our idea.
No.
We are actually we would like to demonstrate the value of opening up to gaming and especially esports within the educational setting. So it is pretty similar to the last project that we did. That was specifically for games within a specific teaching setting. And here, as we have partners, for example, from Denmark, who are of course very much into esports already, and also have a program already, and are starting out on that. And we actually would like to sort of show how this can be done. And we are talking from a basic understanding of esports. What is a frag? What is a demo in Rocket League? Stuff like that. To how does it actually change education? The whole mentoring thing, for example, or how do I sort of plan an esports project, including all of the hardware that I need to buy? Do I really need to buy it, or is there another way? Can I just go down to the next esports club and use their facilities or whatever, you know? If you would like to participate in that process, if you would like to approach that overwhelming topic of esports and that weird, also not really open group of gamers and esports athletes, we would like to be the go-to platform to sort of help you understand and participate. That's the idea of the project. But I don't like to compare it to crypto or stuff like that.
It's just let's say a non-esports person is listening and they have no idea what's going on, then that's like a very known case that might be comparable in some sense. So like it's the same kind of challenges in some sense.
You could actually compare it to all of these digitally oriented topics that we sort of still struggle to get along with. We don't even know how to deal with social media, to be honest, nowadays. Even if you are savvy, we haven't caught up. There was this famous quote from the former German Chancellor Merkel that sort of said, "The internet is still a pretty new thing," and everyone was roasting her. Yeah, ha ha ha! You are so old, so boomer. But actually, she wasn't that wrong, because when we are talking the internet, when we are talking digital space, when we are talking gaming, when we are talking gaming communities, esports, you name it, we don't have much experience there. We haven't created rule sets, frameworks, and so on. I can tell you that most parents that are not into gaming themselves and realize that their kids are into it, they are overwhelmed. They don't know how to behave in the right way. They need advice. And it's the same with quite a large number of teachers. And therefore, we would like to help create a better understanding. And this applies to all digital topics. Esports is just a nice culmination of quite a lot of.
Yeah, because just general digitalization of basically everything you need. Like you have always some who lag behind, you always have some who are front runners, and there's this gigantic disconnect, or silos as you would call it in companies, that just are hard to solve, where this entire thing of what's it called, oh, okay, I forgot it. Never mind. But this entire thing of trying to get these people on the same page to understand the same concepts, to like just the terminology in itself is a challenge. Like it's all the way down to that quote unquote basic level for everyone to get on the same page. Alignment. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah. So just that of creating alignment between like new digitalization things are a problem inherently in itself for companies and also for parents to understand. And then esports is the same in this sense, and the same problems that you're going to tackle in the same area.
Yeah, absolutely. Even more so, because esports is, if you have a look at esports from the outside, it is something pretty challenging to understand.
Yeah, so it might seem simple on the forefront. We know people playing video games, competing, maybe earning money from it. You know, even that concept might be hard to understand for some people. and then
yeah, absolutely.
And that's just the top layer, right? Then we go
Yeah.
all the way down to the performance. That's maybe the next one, the performance aspects, and then you come down to the education and understanding aspects. That might even be above the performance aspects, but there's so many layers suddenly that's impossible to almost unravel in a short amount of time, at least.
Yeah, social implications, societal implications,
stigmatization.
Politics. Yeah, absolutely. So for us, it is just it is the perfect starting point, because you actually start at the core of this kind of youth culture or popular culture, if you don't want to call it youth culture. It is a very young culture still, and you start on the inside, so to say, and then you create pathways to the spectators surrounding it.
Yeah.
It would be amazing if we could sort of facilitate a better understanding of esports, of competitive gaming, to put it that way. It's a bit more general, within society or within education or within families. No?
Yeah, all the way down to that level as well.
Yeah. That would be amazing. So that's the general idea of the project. But as being part of this forward-looking projects call, we are actually pretty much aware of the fact that this is just a first step. You know, it is just what's it called? It's the first step to do, and hopefully, they're going to be way more.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that I would like to talk about then is something. It's a bit company focused, but I think you can dial it into an educational topic as well, because it is kind of educational. But something that companies love to do at this point in time right now is use this modern term, as they call it, disrupting, and disrupt the either it's the marketplace, and it's a complete buzzword. Yeah, and you're laughing now as well. Yeah, because it is a buzzword, and it's something that we got taught about a lot, and a good way for them to try and create alignment and to try and disrupt markets is through workshops. And what do you do on workshops? Well, you do game-based learning. Well, through this game-based learning, and this is for companies, so this means adults. And what you often say, and if you're an esports person or a young person listening, you think about the age-old saying, like, an old dog can't learn new tricks. Well, in some sense, this is what you're trying to do with disrupting and with digitalization and through workshops to get this done. Well, how do you see game-based learning, not only just for youth, but also for the older generations? Be like, how do you see that as being an effective tool for teaching new concepts or trying to gain new understanding?
I think it is. I don't want to go superlative, but it is really well suited for that, because when we are talking about gaming, we are actually talking about the mindset of playing, and being in a playful mindset helps quite a lot. I think you cannot teach an old dog new tricks is something that is pretty, of course, it's not untrue completely, but at the same time, it sounds a bit boomerish to me. You know? Because when we are talking learning psychology, one of the major things that is discussed for the last few years is the question of growth mindset. Like, if you there's a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. Like, that's a famous concept created by Carol Dweck, psychologist from the US. I don't want to quote wrong, so I'll be careful. But a fixed mindset means that everything is fixed beforehand. You have your intelligence, and you cannot develop beyond that. You are bright or you are dumb, so to say, to oversimplify.
Yeah, so it's very binary.
Yeah, very, very binary. And you are born into the person you are, the personality you are, the IQ you are. And a growth mindset is quite the opposite. That's the mindset of you. If you just are interested, if you are willing to try, you can develop a skill. That's very modern. That's something that, of course, the world of work is is all in for mostly, and that's also something that is of course inherent to gamers, because I saw that with escape rooms a few times. If you play with people who have that old fixed mindset, they are, for example, afraid of breaking things. They are very careful when using something, just because they could break it, and then it's broken. If you have a look at kids approaching new material, they are not hesitating. They are curious. They are willing to find out, and they will try every single thing. That's typically gaming. You play a game until you master it, and then you try to start breaking the system. That's very gamey.
That's inherently speedrunning identified. The definition of speedrunning.
Yeah, absolutely. You can see that in esports as well. Not every single trick you can see in the book is just found out because they perfected the system, but maybe by mistake, or maybe by just trying to see what happens if I press this button. And this mindset is essential, and is something that needs to be established in these world of education and world of work settings way more.
Okay, so when it comes to playfulness, because that's a subject that I find so interesting. Playfulness.
Yes.
So I had I've been taught a lot about playfulness, and I have learned a lot from it, from my bachelor's in arts, and I would love to pick your brains about it, because it seems like this all-encompassing tool that can generate interest, that can generate almost all the possibilities or excitement and interest that you want, like all the good qualities of creating engagement to teach people. Do you see maybe some downsides to begin with? Because there's a lot of positives when it comes to playfulness.
Well,
as a method, maybe.
Yeah. There's so much to pick apart here. First and foremost, playfulness is an attitude. It's something that you bring to the table, and that you cannot create it just like that. So even if you bring a game, it doesn't actually mean that you automatically become playful. It's a state of mind. Being playful could happen with everything. It could be dancing. It could be a play on words. It could be everything. Playfulness sort of is grounded on a certain kind of freedom to work with a material, for example. If you are really good at playing an instrument, then it's easy to be playful with that instrument. But it also means that you need to have some kind of basis. When it comes to playfulness, we are actually talking about the social state of play, because there's quite a lot to say about that. First and foremost, playing is the natural way of learning. All higher developed animals play to learn.
Yeah.
We as humans do it as well until education starts. And institutionalized education tells us it is very academia driven, and it tells us that learning needs to be hard work. Learning has to sort of, it feels a bit like suffering, But at the same time, when you have a look at kids that learn before or outside of school, it is quite often really play-oriented. So play is actually something that we should really focus on when it comes to learning, especially as this understanding of being in a playful state, this understanding of participating in a game also creates a certain liberty. It creates the freedom to be whoever you want to be or whatever the game asks you to be. And you could say what happens in a game stays in a game. So if you create a proper gaming context or playing context, then it doesn't have any consequence in the real world. So it is called a magic circle. You create that magic circle, and when you enter this magic circle, only the rules of the game are relevant, and the real world is left behind, so to say. So that's of course it is something magic, but it is something that at least all mammals are able to agree upon. Play is also something very healthy. It helps us sort of deal with stuff. You were talking about escapism before. There are a number of ways to utilize games and play to, for example, deal with trauma, or to understand yourself in a better way, to be able to sort of step out of your normal role and have an outside view on things. All of that is inherent in play. So play in general is actually a pretty desirable state. And a lot of things in our world would benefit a lot if we were able to integrate play. So there's actually nothing bad about that. But at the same time, if you, for example, have a look at escapism. Escapism means that you escape from something.
Yeah.
And if the thing you escape from is so bad, and the thing you escape to is way better, then there's a danger of cutting the connection.
Yeah, it's almost like an addiction at some point.
It can be addictive.
Yeah.
It can be addictive, and it's actually something I never really understood that. But addictive is also a marketing term in games.
Yeah,
which is weird, because addiction is nothing desirable, to be honest. It is every single normal human being doesn't strive to be addicted to something. And I'm happy that it is this way. So promoting or marketing a tool with a terminology like that is questionable, at least. But there is this danger. And if we have a look at the games industry, especially when it comes, for example, to monetization, the whole free-to-play battle pass loot box topic, people making games, which is probably the wrong term to say it, let's call it AAA game companies, at least, or I don't know, predatory gaming companies, strive to heighten the effect of addictiveness. I don't know, we could talk about skin gambling,
Yeah.
Should Valve do something about it? It's a question that is up for years, and they have done some stuff, but at the same time they profit from it. And the problem there is that the people selling games have understood that there is something really attractive to gaming, and there are people who are more in danger of being caught by that. And when we are talking about the world of gaming, when we are talking about the fact that games are inherently good, we also need to be aware that they are a perfect escape from reality. And I can perfectly understand people who have a very tough life to prefer being in a virtual world, in a made up fantasy world that is more controllable, because one thing about gaming is, one thing that quite a lot of people love about games is the fact that you can be the hero.
Yeah. You have this protagonist syndrome. Yeah.
Yeah, and there is a winning state. And the system can be controlled by you. And you cannot say that about society.
There
are a million things that I would change if I could, and I'm not even talking climate change. I'm talking about the fact that, I don't know, small things. There's so many bad things happening in the world right next door, actually. And I would be really, really happy if I could influence it, and I mean to do it in a good way. So a very good thing about games, or a very tempting thing about games, is that you can be the hero, and that the system is controllable and can be formed by you. It is actually also a reason why games are that attractive to people who are on the, I don't know if you can still say that, who suffer from autism or Asperger's syndrome, who are
on the spectrum.
sort of on the spectrum, because they often suffer with the fact that the world is not easy to understand, that there are no easy solutions, that it's all, the world is full of mixed messages, and gaming can be pretty straightforward there. There's nothing hard to understand how to play World of Warcraft. Of course, it's a challenging game, but at the same time, you are the hero. You have a party. There's the monster. Who's your weapon?
Yeah.
That's easy solutions, and therefore it is very, very tempting. I can perfectly understand it, and I'm a sucker for some games as well. I could play way too much Rocket League, for example. Just because I love that. Rocket League, it's a bit like life. You can see attitudes. You can. It's a very psychological game, but at the same time, I'm playing a digital computer game online where I play a ball with a car. It has no value in itself, besides the fact that I just love being there.
Yeah, exactly. So when it comes to this kind of playfulness, because there's so many good things, and a natural thing that you can take away from like playfulness, as you talked about yourself, is about this imagination aspect of it. And now you mentioned the I don't want to call it aristocratic, but this very rigid structure where people play, and then it's the education system of the rigid structure of the education system. Well, as you mentioned, the kids play until they get into the system. When they're in the system and in school, they follow the order, and then when they get out, they start playing again and learning through playing. Well, do you think there's a way where we can put this play aspect into the school curriculum? Not curriculum, but per se. But is there a way where this play aspect can be used as a tool for good when it comes to teaching?
I think it is actually already used in some areas. When you have a look at proper primary education, I'm talking the first few years of schooling. Play still plays a role there. Play is part of your school day, and you can interpret play in a number of different ways. Play means doing as if.
Yeah.
It is. You can be the mayor of a city. You can be, I don't know. You can be a woman walking a street in a dark street at night. That's all play. It is role play. It is a huge number of things. If you understand it this way, then play as simulation, for example, can be perfect to help us understand the world in a deeper systemic way. Play as sort of a part of mastery, for example, like if you are able to play with material, no matter if it's football or if it's the violin, if you know your stuff, then you can be playful there. Also really, really attractive, but only for a small target. I think that a playful mindset, so the attitude of being playful, and also to have a space where consequences don't really matter if you stick to the rules, this simple thing, this abstract thing, sort of independent of all of that other stuff, would be of real value within education as part of society, because we do not have enough time set aside in our everyday lives. And it starts with kids, where we can just be playful, where we can just be loud, be wild, running around, I don't know, trying out things, being someone else. For me, there's a lot of value in play, or in entering a playful state in society in general, and in education especially, no matter what the topic is.
Yeah, something that goes hand in hand with playfulness is imagination. And I actually wrote a paper about this, actually. Something that I would like to get your take on. So my paper was about Nintendo and Super Mario together with Lego doing a collaboration where you could buy a Lego set, you would get a Mario, you can build your own Mario level, and then you can install an app on an iPad, and then you can virtually watch the Mario and play the Mario game through your own Lego course. But what my main point was that this limits imagination, because now you start to set rules for the play in this sense, and this limits the creativity of the imagination that's available for these children. That's the targeted group for this kind of play. What would you say do you think there's a danger of maybe limiting this kind of imagination, even though it might not seem that at first with the product? It seems like maybe some fun things, but suddenly it only has one thing use when you design it like this. Whereas if you have just regular Legos, you can use it for whatever whatever you can imagine.
For some people, it might be dangerous, because they are able for open imagination. I think it's imagination, or also creativity is like a muscle being trained, and if you grow up, or if you have the right genes, maybe, or if you grow up in the right environment, then you can have a great time with free imagination. But it's, I don't know what it is called. I think it was based on an experiment. If you put too many different dishes on a menu, people are not able to decide. Analysis paralysis. You know, they are overwhelmed. And liberty, freedom of structure, like just a free space, a sandbox, as we would like to call it in gaming, is amazing. But at the same time, quite a lot of people are lost, or quite a lot of people could achieve results is probably wrong, or could have a better experience, or could have a more intense exploration, or whatever you might call it, if you give them a rail to hold on to, because for me, imagination, creativity, and stuff like that is something that is mostly based on a proper foundation that you need to bring. For example, if you would like to be really creative and imaginative with an instrument, it probably helps most people to learn the basics first, at least the basics. Imagination, freedom of expression, creativity has a strong foundation in something like mastery. So I don't agree totally, but for some it might be true.
Okay, so in this sense, or the examples that you came here with was like, that was more based in skill. Now, in my example, it was Lego. Lego is not a skill. Lego is a tool for creativity. You can do it with a sandbox as well, and take the same comparison where, okay, well, if you do a sandbox and then you start looking at a guide on how to build a sandcastle, instead of building your own sandcastle from scratch and then learning from that, and then through repetition and repetitive learning, you start and figure out new things and new proportions, and what is it that sand suddenly can do that you probably never would have found out if you only followed the structure and the manual. Like this is like the the possibility of narrowing this kind of freedom that you have here and trying to limit imagination and put it in a box, like that was the main critique point throughout my paper. And what my general question for you is, like, the skill, of course you need the basics before you can be creative, but when it comes to just creative imagination as a concept, pure concept, what, like, do you think there is, like, is there some kind of danger of limiting this? And it could be, maybe you can limit it when they get older, or whenever if you're like 20, then you probably don't have the same impact as if you're a 3-year-old.
As a pure concept, absolutely. But I think that if we're talking about people, no matter what age group they are, they bring something to the table.
Yeah.
And if freedom is actually something that is not that easy to take, you know, having the freedom to do anything means that a lot of people probably do nothing.
Yeah.
Because there's no limits, there's no boundaries. I'd say that quite a lot of people, and I don't mean that they are worse at something compared to others, but for quite a lot of people, I think it is helpful to lower the threshold, or I don't know, to show opportunities to fully enjoy the play with that imagination, because I think that we are all gifted in a way, but at the same time we are the product of our environment, and not everyone is willing to or is able to fully unfold his or her potential just because there's all the freedom, you know?
Yeah.
It might be there might be some hindrance, some, I don't know, inhibitions that make you that disable you from enjoying this freedom.
So you
this
can
concept.
So you can maybe call it like exploration with training wheels instead of pure exploration.
Yes, absolutely, and maybe even if you would like to, a course for starters, like the first Super Mario Kart course, you know, that's an easy one. But if you have done that, if you understand it, if you are beyond that and you are beyond the training wheels, then just go ahead, just start running, you know. But this fact of not knowing what to do because you can't do anything is real.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis is a thing. Yeah. Do you think that concept is, or that fact is so like profound that the training wheels are necessary? Or is it like more dependent on the person, or
it is absolutely dependent on the person. It is also, in my opinion, it is very much dependent on where you come from. It's very much dependent on what you were able to experience in your time beforehand. You know, if you to put it in very simple words, if you grew up in a family of painters, then painting a picture might be second nature.
Yeah.
If you never had the opportunity to even hold the brush, then it might be a challenge.
Yeah.
And that's the situation in most cases, I'd say. Imagination and creativity is a gift, but a gift that needs to be nourished. And if it's not nourished, there are a lot of obstacles in the way.
Yeah.
And if you help people getting around these obstacles, then they might be fine with the sheer freedom that they are offered in that complete sandbox, or whatever you might call it.
Yeah. So the training, then, because then you have to develop that creativity muscle and the imagination muscle at a later point.
Yeah.
And that's where the training wheels come in,
or at least free it again, you know, because there are so many other things that are above it. You sort of need to put all the layers away, and then you can access it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's an entire art form in itself at some point. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Have you thought about introducing playfulness in this kind of esports startup thing? Because you have this heavily digitalized space, you have so many specialist people who are better than average in most sense. Like you can almost say that with certainty in the field of esports that most of them are better than average at digitalization or digital materials. Do you think is there some way of you have you thought about interacting playfulness within EASIE?
Playfulness is I think playfulness is a concept that is not easy to
maybe gamification then or game-based learning in that sense.
Well, for an educational institution to do esports education, there are several stages, and the final stage or the full implementation means that games and games culture are an inherent topic within all of the education offered within the institution. So gaming should be, or the context of games culture should be a topic within every single subject. Not every single day all the time, but it should play the role that it deserves, you know, as the mainstream culture, as the driver of modern technology development, as the affinity group, the social space where people interact, as the way or the main approach to using all of the technology that you might use within the world of work. Should definitely take a major role there, and we already have schools within the project. We have that one school in Copenhagen Syd, and the teachers working there are doing an amazing job at bringing games to education, from talking about the values of being an esports athlete to what it means to understand narratives through games presentation, like do a literature course but do it based on games, you know. Or do sort of a film course but do it based on games. Like we had that one example with the game called Plague Tale Innocence, and the colleague of mine, Andreas, he's actually, he shows the first part of the game, like the first 20-ish minutes, and he's talking about how the game sets the tone. How does the lighting work? How are the characters?
So like movie analysis.
The movie analysis, literature analysis. Yeah. So a lot about the characters as well. You know, how do we perceive character A, character B? Is it a strong woman within the, I don't know, Middle Ages, stuff like that, you know. So
it's actually cinema in some sense. It's actually
cinema, literature, culture in general. It is also sort of historically oriented. It is very society oriented. It's
art,
media analysis, so to say. No,
in some sense,
and the most elaborate stage or the full implementation of such an esports program means that teaching is also changed profoundly.
Yeah, so you can say that game-based learning is easier in esports because you already work with games. But so the thing is, do you want this to be trickled down to other courses? So let's say math. Suddenly you have more game-based learning in math because of the esports course and the effect you have from there.
We don't need to fit the square in every single round hole and so on, you know.
Yeah.
So if there's no proper connection, if there's no real if there's nothing obvious that can bring both parts together, then I'd say we don't need to force it, you know. But there's actually, most of the time, there's an application, because if we're talking esports, we are talking about the esports ecosystem and all the jobs that it can hold, and then we're talking about media production, for example.
Yeah,
you could easily use your media production skills to do a YouTube video about a certain experiment within your chemistry class.
Yeah,
you know,
and suddenly you become a media student.
And that doesn't mean that you need to be an esports student to do the chemistry, or that the chemistry teacher needs to have a deeper understanding of esports in itself. But this whole suite, this whole area of jobs within digital society, digital culture, digital world of work, exemplified within esports, can be applied to all kinds of subjects, in my opinion.
Okay, interesting. When it comes to game-based learning and esports, do you see? So you talk about all these concepts and you want to trickle down. Do you have all the? Do you think all the roles in esports? Is that what you are trying to present with this course that you're going to present with the program you want to install?
What do you mean with roles? Like
So
jobs?
like jobs, yeah, like journalist, like general manager, like owner, like graphics designer, video producer, caster, color commentator, play-by-play commentator, you name it. All the vast majority, social media manager, all the vast majority of jobs that are in esports. Like, is that a part of the curriculum that you want to?
Yeah,
to
well,
present?
you could say yes, but of course, as far as it seems fit within a schooling context,
Yeah.
if you want to be a journalist, you might be part of the book club at school, to put it that way. You won't get you won't get a proper journalist's education, and it's probably the same with a social media person. It's the same with the guy who's setting up the OBS. Of course, certain projects within education and certain topics, and also a focus on certain topics within a certain subject. For example, in your Danish classroom or English classroom, focusing on video production. This can be useful for your later path, but I don't really know that is going to be your path, and you should be prepared for more than one path. So esports education within this specific context should be as broad as possible. And if you have some people who are really into that, if you have a kid that is 14 and he knows, I want to be a Counter-Strike journalist, then of course you can apply that. Of course you can, I don't know, if you have an esports program at your school, then you are probably going to have live streams. You're probably going to have, I don't know, gaming reviews on YouTube, or you're probably going to have probably it's no longer going to be existing, but an ex-Twitter account, and all of these need to be fed, and this should be done in close collaboration with the students.
Yeah.
But of course, you have to be aware that these are sort of still kids, so responsibility is something that you can start out with, but it needs to be integrated into bigger concepts.
All right. Okay. So I have a final question before we end up. It might be a bit odd since we've been so much about playfulness and everything. But keeping our entire conversation in mind, what do you think about homework and the value of homework that it can give to students?
You don't want to give me any homework today, right?
No, of course not.
I have some for you, of course. I'm a former teacher.
Of course.
Yeah, sure.
Because everybody hates it. Everybody hates it, and still it gets done.
I think there's scientific evidence that homework has no use beyond discipline.
Yeah.
Well, homework is a weird concept, Homework, there's a whole concept of flipped classroom, where you sort of do your work within class, but you listen, watch, and so on at home. So you do the prep work at home, like the proper prep, understanding something, and then you do the real work at school. So it sort of flips it around, which is something that makes more sense to me. But the problem with homework is that you actually are asked to do something in your free time that you already did in the morning when you were asked to do it. So if you create something interesting, tempting, fascinating, then I think probably homework is done easily. I don't know if we should still call it homework then. Homework is that weird concept of you are free in the afternoon anyways. Go and learn some vocabulary, do stuff like that. Do some equations, to have some practice, unguided practice to say, which correcting it takes time away from your lesson in the next lesson. So it's a weird concept. If you understand teaching or education or learning a subject, being part of a project, more in that project in a result-oriented way. Like if you, for example, at the moment at the University of Applied Sciences in St. Pölten, where I work, I am sort of the guide in a semester-long project. It's called the Media Lab, and they have their one project that they do all together, and they mostly work on their own, and we just guide them. We have a number of different inputs, and then it's up to them. So if you have something like that, then I think there is actually no question if you do homework or not, if you are going to be measured by the results in the end, if it's summative, so to say, if you are passionate for something, then homework is also not a problem. But homework as we see it quite often, or homework as it is done in regular education, means that you have to do the same trick over and over again, and that is never going to be successful. So if we redefine what homework, I don't like the word at all. If we redefine what that task that you have to do at home is going to be, then we are actually going to see better results. In general, I'm not a fan of homework, but I think that education shouldn't end like at the end of the school day. It just needs to be interesting enough,
Yeah, exactly. Okay, and on that note, I'm gonna leave a link for the EASIE Discord. If you are interested, you can join it. I'll leave it in the description. Or else, do you have a final word for whoever's watching so long?
Yeah, well, I think that gaming offers quite a lot of opportunities, and there's so much good in it if we look beyond all of the stuff that is happening and that is definitely problematic. But for me, gaming can be an amazing catalyst to change society profoundly by changing education and by bringing all of these topics to the forefront. And esports specifically is going to be one of the major battlefields within the next few years. Hopefully, I hope that all of the esports fascinated people are not willing to just have their esports taken away by some crazy regime just because they think they can buy everything.
All right. Thank you for joining me.